Hello and welcome. If you're new to this channel, my name is Nana Ususetre. I'm a blogger, writer, and podcaster, and I'll be going through my process of how I create my blogs as well as podcasts using the ReMarkable 2. So the ReMarkable 2 is a new device that I have been fortunate enough to obtain thanks to my lovely girlfriend, and it's really just streamlined my process at the end of the day. So I use my ReMarkable to sort of jot down my ideas. I have 1,000 ideas that come through my head, and it's just quite nice to put in one place. Previously, I'd been doing this on Notion, and I still use Notion. And if you actually want to find out how my Notion setup is, you can check our previous video. But there's nothing that beats the process of writing things down on paper. And as much as the ReMarkable is a digital product, it really does feel like paper. So my approach and my favorite approach is actually to do mind maps. And I feel mind maps are quite relevant because that's specifically how my brain works. I like putting down various random ideas which sort of relate to something. And I feel like I am capable of doing that on my ReMarkable too. Previously, I have used apps such as Notability and GoodNotes to try mind map on my Apple iPad, but that just doesn't feel the same. I've used a paper-like screen, I've used various types of screen protectors, but nothing comes close to the ReMarkable. And once I saw this product, I obviously had to make sure that I got one if it was available, and luckily for me it was at the time where I was. Where does my process start? So normally I do read a lot of books, and before getting the ReMarkable, I would read books on my cell phone as well as my iPad or physical books, and it was quite difficult keeping a track record, as well as the fact that when you have a book in front of you, you don't want to really make dents or damage the book by writing in the margins, whereas I can do that with a digital product, which is this ebook. So my process starts with reading on the ReMarkable itself. The ReMarkable gives you the opportunity to sort of make the notes that you would make if you had a pen and paper with you. So I scribble in the margins, I write certain ideas down, I circle words, I draw stars obviously to catch my attention for important notes. So it starts with reading on the ReMarkable. I get an ebook version obviously of what I am about to read, pay for that, obviously load it up onto the ReMarkable, and that makes things a lot easier. As I mentioned, obviously making notes in the margins is something that actually feels quite nice to me, but I never felt that I had the opportunity to do that beforehand. You can highlight in certain other applications such as Apple Books as well as a PDF reader, but it's not the same thing because it's not all housed onto one device at the end of the day or in one destination folder. And that's what the ReMarkable gives me the ability to do, the fact that I can make all my scribbles and my notes in one device. And after I've gone through the process of making notes and scribbling down my ideas in these certain books, I email the relevant pages to myself. So the ReMarkable has a feature which enables you to sort of select the pages that you want to email, and then you can email them to yourself, where you've obviously made the scribbles and notes that you want to highlight and remember. And before my previous blog post, I was reading a book by Ash Ali and Hassan Kuba called The Unfair Advantage, as well as Naval Ravikant's Almanac, or The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And based on the books that I was reading at the time, I sort of stumbled on a few ideas, and I related some of the concepts they were speaking about in both books. So with the notes in the margins that I made, I actually got inspired at 6 o'clock in the morning to sort of do a thread summary of the information that I had basically obtained from these books. And it actually did quite well because the authors of The Unfair Advantage were actually quite happy with my summary, and they actually retweeted and commented and gave me props for it. So that was quite cool. And basically from that, I realized that I have enough information to actually write my blog post as well as my podcast. After spending time on Twitter and obviously compiling this huge thread, what I did was I went back to the ReMarkable and made a mind map, which basically gave further expansion to some of the points. As you know, Twitter limits you to 160 characters, so you can only sort of get some of your points across. So what I went to do was to go back to my mind map and put down main headings and basically expand on some of these examples and give further examples which come from my background as well as my experience. And then also it enables me to think laterally and not linearly like I would do in a tweet thread. And I could just basically further expand and allow myself to wander and create and write all my ideas down on the ReMarkable itself. So after looking through my tweet thread as well as jotting down these main ideas on the ReMarkable, I was able to go back to the book notes on my phone, which I had emailed to myself, and basically fill in the gaps where I didn't have any ideas or where I needed to expand further or didn't have the opportunity to expand further on in my tweet thread. From there, after completing my mind map on my ReMarkable, what I do is I move on to the next stage, which is writing my blog posts. So when it comes to blogging, obviously there are many platforms out there. I use WordPress, and what I do is I go through a few rough drafts where I play with the concepts from my mind map as well as the tweet thread and basically order them according to relevance until I come with some sort of idea and structure of how I would like to structure the blog post. So not everything in the mind map makes it to the blog post, but that's fine because they're two sort of different formats and mediums that I'm going to use the same mind map for. What you'll see now is that I take my iPad and actually sketch a diagram to sort of tie everything together and send it to myself and embed it basically into WordPress. Basically, I sketch a diagram on my iPad which sort of ties everything together and is quite nice for any person that's reading if they relate to the topic to save. So I send that to myself, obviously, by email, and I upload it and embed it into WordPress, which I think I've already said. On WordPress, I make use of tools, SEO tools and spell checkers such as Yoast plugin, which checks if I have embedded enough words of the relevant topic throughout the blog posts, as well as Grammarly, which is obviously the free version, to make sure that I spell my words correctly and have used proper grammar in my sentences. Once I'm happy, I review my blog post and set up to be published after my podcast. So when it comes to podcasts, I normally do that the day after I write the blog post, after I've given myself enough time for the ideas to marinate, basically. What I do is I record my blog post, obviously, using my cell phone. I record it on my iPhone, and then I make use of the Boya BYM1 Pro lav mic, and I attach it to, obviously, my lapel. It's actually something quite new, and I'm actually using right now, and it really makes a difference if you use a lav mic. The hardest part of my whole process is actually the podcasting part, because I'm not actually reading verbatim, and I'm adding a few more things that were in my mind map, as well as adding more examples and stories from my past experiences to make it more personal. After that is done, I send it to my media manager to make sure that everything is edited, and we discuss the title. We sort of use preset covers as well as thumbnails, sort of to save time, and my media manager makes sure everything is loaded to the right channels at the right time using the relevant hashtags as well as titles and all the fancy things that they are quite clued up about. When Monday rolls over, I repeat the process again, maybe minus a tweet thread. And at the end of the day, that's my process in a nutshell. Hopefully it gets better as I keep on improving and I keep on doing more blog posts and podcasts. But yeah, at the moment, I think this is the best that it can be. Anyway, stay tuned for another video and take care. Bye.